Hello, I'm Jennifer of Jen and Coco. I hope you all are having a wonderful day and have your mugs of hot chocolates ready, because we're going to be diving right in. So, I was looking over some of my notes and such, and doing some research, and I realized we have a small problem with our goals and our current setup, and it all really comes down to word order. So I've been talking about how I want our noun classes, which we currently have 5 of right now, to combine morphologically with our case. However, there's a small issue with that. Right now we have established that we have postpositions, which is we know that our case markers are deriving from adpositions, and our adjectives are come before our nouns. And right now our noun classes are deriving from adjectives. So, we need to revisit our syntax here. And I've realized that for the most part, and we're maintaining that we're a head final language. That I have no problem with. The main thing that we want to do is that if we move our nouns to be if we move our adjectives to follow our nouns, this produces a couple interesting things. Because there's a couple. So let me get to this. So first, we're going to keep our nouns after our adjectives, and we're also going to put our relative clauses. Our adjectives after our nouns, and our relative clauses are also going to come after our nouns. However, our demonstratives will come before our nouns, our numbers will come before our nouns, and what was the last one we had? It was, possessives before our nouns, and our genitives will be before our nouns. This produces an interesting result. So this means that our case and class markers can combine as we had wanted them to previously. However, on top of that, I had mentioned that our plurality system is going to be a standalone word or a clitic. If we go with clitic, here's something I could potentially see happening that I am very, very excited with. Or it could even be a prefix here, and I'll get to that in a moment. So if it stays on the side of our numbers here, if we derive it from something dealing with numbers and such, we'll get to some of that in the specifics in a moment. When agreement starts to function, it'll attach on to the number. I'm almost certain of that. When we start getting gender case agreement. However, if our plurality word or starts to affix on to other words, particularly if it only starts to prefix on to if it starts to prefix on to the noun specifically, that means we will get essentially not only a case marking following, or like a case and class marking at the suffix onto the word, but also a case class number marking prefixed onto the word, which would mean we would essentially get affixes on both sides of the noun, which I think is a cool thing that could potentially happen. I'm kind of excited for that, and it would really specifically happen in plural instances. So you get singular words that just have a suffix marking case and class, and you have plural words that have essentially 2 affixes, one on either side, that mean more or less the same thing. So, I'm actually quite excited about that. I think this provides some very, very interesting results that And that's, of course, if we choose to make it a prefix acclitic, because that would, if it's a clitic, it would also mean that not every plural noun is going to wind up having that parafix. I don't remember the exact term for when it's on both sides. Essentially, what if the opposite of infix is? But going back, but it would mean that, like, if there's any other demonstratives or such, that they might potentially precede, or they might essentially have the clitic attached to them instead of the root. There's some options there. We'll look into that more as we continue on with this, but I am very excited about this development. Okay, now, I feel like there was something else with syntax that I wanted to discuss, and I can. Oh, the other thing is that there's some timeline and evolution stuff that I realized I want to adjust. As I was doing some research, and by research I mean watching some Artifactian and Bibliobradian videos, and I realized that some of the evolutionary stuff I have here, at least for what I am hoping for or what I want, it just doesn't quite work. So we're going to rearrange some of the things we have here. First, we're going to establish all of our noun class. I think all four of these are going to be established roughly the same time in the whole scheme of things. And there's not going to be a significant difference between when the lower animate class evolves and when the other classes evolve. Yes, it is technically after the evolution of that, but not enough to make a real impact on the language. So, what we're just going to say is that we have class and case evolve, and that's going to be one of the first things we have happen, because I want that to early on start affixing because I want that to go ahead and start affixing onto words and really get cemented in, so that way it has time to get eroded some and really become not necessarily fully opaque, but I don't want them to be fully transparent either as to what they are coming from. So, the next thing that we'll have our familial honorifics will also form after our class and case, which means we might want to adjust our pronouns and again make those more complicated, but I think that'll be to our benefit. We'll take a look at, we'll have to take another look later on at how we're going to adjust our pronouns, but that's not something I want to tackle today. That is a future issue to work with. And then, as far as like our passive perfective distinction verbs, that's essentially, we're going to say that happened way early on and not even worth talking about. Essentially, it's been part of the language for a while, and this is what I want to talk about, is our verb system, and talk more about this. So right now we have a very, very basic form system. Ooh. And I just realized that we're discussing formality on verbs. We're gonna have to talk about our pronoun system in order to make this work. Okay. So, actually, we are going to revisit our pronouns here for a moment. So, our pronouns are going to for certain mark case and gender, or case and class. And to a certain extent formality. However, formality is going to be interesting to figure out how that's going to work on top of the case and class. But first, case and class are going to have evolved first, So, we know that for certain there is going to be a first person, a second person. I don't know if we're going to divide the second person into Flaunal or Avian. I do know we are not going to alter the first person as far as like being Flaunal or Avian. But I'm not sure if we're going to make that distinction here. Because I'm just not certain how necessary it is, to be honest. Third person. Now here we are definitely going to make a Flaunal, Avian, lower Flaunal, lower Avian. Essentially it's non-human Flaunal, but we don't have a... It's like, or essentially non-Flaunal animate, a non-Avian animate, but that doesn't quite work out terminology-wise in the system. And then inanimate. So we know that these 5 pronouns are definitely going to exist. And we're going to have a variant of these for our nominative, accusative, and our genitive. Fantastic. Okay. So, nominative, accusative, genitive. So the next thing is, how do we want to mark formality on here? We had discussed that we are going to want a way to express formality and informality for certain. We might actually remove our Hess 1 specifically for head of households. Or not. Because we did say, so the head of household position is a title. But it's also a Flaunal only title. That said, does it get... Is it important enough that it'll be attached to pronouns, even? That is a good question. I am not certain on that. So... Okay. One thing we do know. We're going to need more space than that, I'm almost certain of, but... Yeah, because we're going to want at least... Yeah, we're going to want a lot of space here. Let's start with that at least. So... Plus... Well, let's just do... Okay, I don't think we're not going to have a Flaunal Avian distinction in second person. But we will have... This is an option. We could potentially have the title or a title for head of household essentially become its own pronoun. That would be a very interesting distinction. Oh boy. There's some interesting questions here. So, what I'm thinking of, we know we're going to have a formal, informal distinction. At the very least, we're going to have a two-tone distinction here. But I think we need to go a bit more complicated than that. Formal, informal. So if we went with a three-based distinction, so very formal, formal, informal, how would these get used? Alright, let's go back to over here. So, let's look outside the family for a moment. For people older than you, you would be formal with, or for, as we mentioned, flaunal creatures who are around your age, or around your age as well. They would all get the formal distinction. Council members and council leaders and other potential heads of household would get the high formal distinction, although it's potential that other potential heads of household who are... Oh, actually, we'll come back to that, but yeah. Say, other potential heads of household would get the formal distinction. And people who are younger than you will get a informal distinction, assuming that they are not other potential heads of households. Or council members or council leaders, for that matter. Now, if you are the council leader, you will probably give just a regular formal to the council members, and as well as to other potential heads of household. Yeah, you wouldn't really give you wouldn't use high formal for most anyone. Because you would be the oldest. There wouldn't be any, okay, so the council members, as we mentioned on Monday, are made up of heads of households. Essentially, it's the eldest of the eldest of the eldest child. The oldest living eldest child in a family. So, if you are, and the council leader is the oldest among those people. So, if you are council leader, that means that you are, essentially, you're one of the oldest people in the village, and certainly one of the oldest flaunal creatures in the village. There may be some generations above you who the eldest child has already passed away from, but yeah, you're going to be one of the oldest people in the entire area. So, with that in mind, you would be addressing most people as being younger than you anyway. Now, for the council members, they would definitely use just the formal with them amongst themselves. And the high formal, probably just to denote the council leader, they would likely use the high formal, or they may switch between formal and high formal, just depends on circumstances. Other potential heads of household would, again, formal or informal are possible, depending on circumstances, and just about everyone else will be informal. Again, following some of the normal rules of things. Other potential heads of households, actually, I think heads of households, and council members and council leader, regardless of who is speaking to them, will always at least get the formal. So if we go with this three-part system, your average Joe Schmo is going to reserve the very formal for the council. Essentially, specifically for leadership. Yeah, that works. Because that would also include their head of household would be part of that, as well as just all of the heads of household from all the families in the area. Okay, actually, yeah, I think I can work with this. So then over here we would have the same distinctions. Kind of. We would not have a very formal avian distinction, just by the fact that there'd be no reason for one, because they cannot be heads of household. And it's possible that if a pattern construction is seen, that very formal avian term might mean something else. But for the most part, you're not going to have that distinction in the avian, or it's going to get dropped very quickly just from lack of use. So, I'm going to move that over, move these over. Whew, this is a complicated pronoun system, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Okay, I think this establishes the basics. Now, the next thing to consider, so now we go back to our verbs. I think, oh yeah, we said high formal, not very formal, which I think is fitting for this actually. So we have high formal, yeah. Yeah, and kind of just, so the general order of things is, if you're just a generic Joe Schmo, you're going to use high formal with the council, formal with people older than you. But what do you use with other potential heads of households who aren't... you're just always going to be formal with potential heads of households, regardless of age. So it's high formal for the council, formal for potential heads of households, formal for anyone older than you, and flaunal creatures around your age, informal for avian creatures around your age, and anyone younger than you. Fantastic. If you are a potential head of household, you will, again, still use high formal for the council, formal for all potential heads of household, and yeah, you would probably still follow the formal, informal distinctions as far as how you address people older and younger than you. And if you are on the council, you would probably just use, you would either use high formal for everyone, or you'd use just formal for, I think you just use high formal for everyone, or for everyone on the council. I think council will always get high formal. Heads of household always get formal, and then the rest of it's just relative to age and species. Okay, this we can work with. So I think if we're going to mark formality on verbs, it's going to follow the same pattern of high formal, formal, informal, and will get used similarly, and it'll agree with it'll agree with how the pronouns would get used in the same situation. Okay. Let me double check one thing quick. Like checking something real quick. So I'm trying to check on... I'm not sure if marking verbs with formality is common or not. Okay, so I am seeing that some verbs mark it somehow. That's enough for me just to see that there is mention of that. Okay. The complications of all this. Okay, so, yes, we are going to have some formality marked on the verbs. It'll agree with pronouns. Yeah. Okay, so one thing that we need to look at is meanings of some of our words here. So we're going to actually adjust what we have here. So rather than showing, well, yeah, so what we're going to have here, we know that, so this is going to be our, essentially our non-past, this is going, so one thing I wanted to have is this is going to be our generic non-past. I want this to incorporate some type of modal element, or perhaps other aspects. And some options we have for that include, let's see. I was just watching the Artifacts video with Biblioridian, where they discussed tense, aspect, and mood in Artifacts language OA. And what they had done with the imperfective non-past was that they had turned it into the habitual. I don't want to do that just for the sole fact of that's what they did. I don't want to copy them on that. What we need is, so we have this meaning here that means ongoing. I am running, essentially. And it may be perfectly fine to have I run, I am running. Or I run versus I am running. So, yeah, it's the real question right here. So, it could also take on a more modal distinction. What moods would it possibly take? Something mean... Oh! Actually, instead of... It could mean... No, that wouldn't make sense. I had an idea, not thrilled with it, so we're not going to follow through with it. My idea was to have this mean like an iterative, potentially. And that may not be a bad idea. But that would mean it would be an iterative that would only be... Essentially, it's an iterative used for the present. So I think right now we'll just stick with actually all four do get used. So there's a difference between I run, I am running. Like, I'm running to the store, I run to the store. Okay, now that I'm thinking about it, though, and this, again, this is coming from an English perspective, so this may just be an English bias that is causing this, is that if I have the imperfective be the default, then I could have the perfective kind of fulfill a different role in the non-past. I think I want to do that. Okay, so we need to find out some sort of word that would allow the perfective to become the non-default variation. Or some reference point. But we know that that the imperfective will be the base. I think I like that idea. So, pardon me. That came out of nowhere. Hello. Okay. So we have perfective, imperfective. What's our next step? What's the term for this? I don't know it off the top of my head. I'll have to look that up off stream. But yeah, this would be kind of just like a general statement. And that... yeah, some sort of factual... yeah, this would be like, I ran to the store, I was running to the store, I am running to the store, I run to the store. Yeah, I like that. Trying to think of other types of verbs, like I built the bridge, I am building a bridge. I build a bridge. I am building a bridge. I was building a bridge. I built the bridge. Or I built a bridge. Yeah, there's some options there. It's a little bit quirky, but I think that's... I think that this is just being like kind of understood as like just a general... yeah, there's something there. I build a bridge. Yeah, I'm not sure the term. I'll need to do some research into that as to what this is exactly, and that'll affect some of what we do later on once we start adding on like our future and that sort of stuff. And which, speaking of which, we do want to have a future distinction here. So we do want. Eventually, we will have on top of all this a future, and so if we know it, so our future verb would probably come with something. So to know is a pretty typical one. To know, to think, to understand. Well, maybe not to understand. That sounds like a more past tense thing. To see, to go. To go is a pretty typical one. I think we'll start off with that, and that'll probably get, at least for right now. So, perfective, imperfective, past, non-past. So, here we would have, so this would be our simple future. No question on that. Alright, so we have a simple future here. How else do we want to do this? So... so simple present, simple future, imperfected past, perfected past. Simple as that. Okay, when we get into our past, and we'll also need to figure out what this is going to mean, a statement that will happen in the future, or that will be true. Oh, a possibility. So yeah, I'll need to look at some more of the terminology to figure out what exactly the roles these are going to fill, and I'll definitely come up with something for that for Friday. So we know that in our past, this is where we also get some interesting potentials. So... actually, with the fact that this might be a possibility, I think I'd like this to be no. Like to no. Well, maybe not to no, because that would be kind of a past. That sounds like a past tense thing. Give me one moment. I want to check something I've done in a previous language real quick. Doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doo. Okay. That's not the... well, that might have something on what I want. One moment, please. Oh. Well. Okay, so I was looking at... okay, hold on, that's maybe not been my best example to look for. One mother... I don't think I have the other one. Okay, that's alright. We'll make this work. Yeah, I'm not seeing the other example I had. Okay, this will be fine. Okay, so yeah, I was trying to look at what I'd use in the past to mean future tense, and the only example I could find was one where I had to death, and that had some implications with that culture that's different from here. So that's not going to be, that wouldn't quite make sense with this. So our future tense is going to come from... To go is just such a normal one that I can't think of anything else. Yeah. We're going to use to go. We'll stick with that for now. Unless I can think of anything better. So, what we have here is... so, if this is I was running, this would be I was going. Which is a potential. I'm really blanking on the names of these moods right now. Yeah, I was going to do something. Conditional. Conditional or counterfactual. I think conditional or yeah. Or yeah, I was going. I don't really want to use to go though. Okay, so what else would make sense for like a future like? To go is so common though. What are other common verbs? To go, to be. I don't want to use to be. Actually, I want to try and avoid some form of to be to the extent that I can. Let's see. To go, to be. We could use a more motive verb, but like actually like using running or something like that. But I think to go would make more sense. There's something else here. Hold up. If our past came from something mean to end, or to finish, our future could mean something to begin. Alright, let's play with this thought. I realize that these would not evolve at the same time, and that chances are that this, but they might. But yeah, let's think on this for a moment. So if this means to begin, this would be, so I was running, I was beginning. And this was, I began. So let's see, I began to walk. It's almost like the start of how you would tell a story. But this narrative. Let's see, narrative mood. Is there such thing as a narrative mood? That seems a bit odd, but also a bit fun. Yes, okay, hold on, let me look up. So, okay. I am considering some things right now. Ooh, I might have found the mood name for what I was looking at earlier. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so I think that this would be the nomic. I want to double check that fact later, but I think not. That's gonna be the nomic, or become a nomic understanding of things. So, and so, rather than just, so if with that in mind, that this might mean a potential, or be a potential mood. So you would have a, essentially, because rather than being a general statement of truth, it's, so rather than I run, or birds fly, as the case may be, it may be Birds, birds begin to fly. Yeah, I like that. Okay. I am beginning to run. I will run. I like that actually a lot. I'm liking this beginning actually. So, in the past, what does that mean? I began to run. Or I began to be sick. I began... Yes, I mean to begin, to start. Awesome. Okay, I started to run. I started to be sick. I'm really getting like a narrative sense, which is kind of weird in a way, but I'm not sure that that's what I want to do. Okay, but this was, I was beginning to run. I was beginning to be sick. Birds were beginning to fly. Yeah, really... I'm just getting a lot of aspectual, or not aspectual, more tense distinctions, which is not bad. But I'm essentially getting I'm getting the feeling of relative tenses. So let me just compare this. Like, I was going to run versus I was beginning to run. I was going to run. I was going to be sick. I was beginning. I began to be sick. I began to run. Is that inchoative? Actually, now that I think about it. Which if so, I believe that that's an aspect. Yeah, I think that that's what I'm feeling right now, is those aspects. Oh boy. Grammatical aspect here. Let's just double check that what I'm thinking is what it is. Okay. So yeah, I'm seeing two. I'm seeing a inceptive or inchoative. Yeah. And I think that this would make sense, that this is a inceptive, this is the beginning of an action, and this is an inchoative, the beginning of a state. So those become more aspectual distinctions. Which is... Does this work? I'm not sure, but yeah, this is something I need to think about how this actually works, and does it work? Because these still retain their past tense meaning, which is actually fine with aspectual distinctions. Yeah, this might be... I think this works. But yeah, it means our future tense is that we don't have a whole lot of moods, which I think is fine. And we are starting to get some baked-in aspectual distinctions, which I think is also fine. So you would get... So right now, just with basics, you would have... so you would have... Let's just start with the simple with the... Yeah, our present. So you would have... I am running. I run, just as a general statement of fact. Birds fly. like what Scout says in that Meet the Team thing from TF2. Birds fly, bees sting, and baby, I kill people. Or I hurt people. Yeah, that's kind of it. That would be the all three of those would use this nomic expression of just it's just something that happens. It's just something that is. So let's see. I am running. I run, just as a general statement of fact. I was running. I ran. I'm going to run. That's what it means, or translates to, more literally, or less literally, more accurately. I begin to, I might run. Ooh, or that could be the incoative. Okay, we'll need to consider that as well. Like a present incoative has like a change of, since it is noting like a change of state. I began running. I began to run, as in I wasn't running, and now I am. That makes a little bit less sense, but like, began to bloom, like the flowers began to bloom is the example I'm seeing here. Likewise, like flowers started to bloom. Yeah, so it's more of a change of state. Okay. Or like, maybe I was noting I was jogging prior. Like I began to jog. I started to jog. Or I was jogging, and then I began to run. I think that works. I think that I think in my mind that checks out. I was in the middle of, essentially, I was in the middle of running, and then I was in the middle of just walking or taking a jog, and then I started to run. Okay, I actually like this. I think this is going to give us a good thing. We also need to remember that formality is going to be marked on these verbs as well, so I think this gives us a nice little bit of complexity into our verbs. That these are going to be some of our most basic elements here that we'll be using, which I think I think we'll find some interesting that there's so much idea in potential or starting things. And I think that we'll either find a reason that becomes ingrained like this, or that might play into other aspects. There's some ideas here. I'm actually liking this a lot. I think this is what we're going to call it for today. We actually got a lot done, in my opinion. We adjusted some of our syntax and produced what might be a very, very cool parafix system, for nouns, which I think will be very, very neat. I'm actually quite excited for that. We've discussed our verbs, and even though we said we weren't going to do it, we also adjusted our pronoun system to work just a little bit better with our new timeline. We've discussed a lot here today. We are getting very, very close to wanting to start coining morphemes. I don't think we're going to do it this week, but I think, fingers crossed, next Monday we'll start coining morphemes. I think Friday we're going to be discussing something else. I'm not sure what, but I just want to double check our grammar here. I want to double check some of these verbal distinctions I've made and just clarify that those are actually what I think they're going to be. Yeah, I think we've got a good start here, and we'll definitely want to carry on from this, so we've got a lot of options ahead of us. Thank you for everyone who joined me today. I hope you'll have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll be jumping on Twitch in just a little bit after this, and yeah, thank you for joining in. Have a good rest of your day. See ya on Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern.